All right, here we are, episode 5. We're going to be talking about how to make money as a creative and how to charge again.
I think it's left out. I mean, I think a lot of times it's hard.
It was like one of our most popular episodes. Let's just talk about it some more.
And it's always hard to find out. Like I'm always wanting to know, what do other people charge and how do you come to that conclusion? And I think it took me a long time to figure that out. And so I think that's part of why I want to share it.
It's hard to, because that's not something people are supposed to talk about, right? You're not supposed to talk about how much you get paid.
Right. Never.
We had that conversation recently in the office.
Yes. Oh, yes.
One
yes,
of our
we did.
contractors.
Oh, yeah.
talk
Compared
about
notes.
how much he was making.
Not a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think this is.
So we're going to get ourselves in trouble today. Is that what you're saying?
We always get ourselves in trouble. I think that's one of the goals of this episode, though, is to really think through the creative. And so many times as creatives, I'll say for me, I undervalue myself. I don't think through all the details. And so I have had traditionally a very bad habit of undercharging people. That ends up being a really bad business decision.
Yeah, it's a problem for a lot of people. I know several people right now who they're in deep trouble because they didn't charge enough for what they're providing. And so now they're in debt, and now they can't pay off the people they bought stuff from, and they can't pay the people that they hired to do the work. And it's just a big.
I think the core challenge in that is that for a lot of us, the creativity side comes so naturally. Like, that's so easy for me to do. Mm-hmm. It doesn't feel like something I should charge for. It's harder for me to charge for ideas because I have like 65 every 10 seconds or so. So
at least.
Like, that's just like, what's so hard about that? And then when I start listening to people, friends who really don't have that kind of brain, mm-hmm. And go, okay, I guess that is something unusual. And I think, again, that's something you've really helped me with. Probably towards the top of the list of things that you've improved in my life. But the just helping me understand my value and understanding the worth of our company and what we do. And it really helps us to do that more and more for clients because you have been able to come in and say, okay, this is what's right and fair. Yeah. And this is what's good. And I've always wanted to be kind of that middle range person. I don't want to be the cheapest in the market. I don't want to be the most expensive. And I feel like that's where we're at a lot of times. And that's been because of you taking that on and making that happen. And I'm not in those decisions. Obviously, we talk about it a lot. You'll ask me things. So right off the bat,
you have your opinions.
I have my opinions. Like the other day when I said we cannot charge that. There is no way we can charge that. So tell about that.
We were going to go off on another tangent, but So one of the ways we charge is hourly, and so we keep track of how many hours we spend on a project, how many hours each person spends on the project, and what project they're working on, and we have a rate assigned to each person. And so this particular person had worked like 9 hours on a very small little project, and that should not have taken 9 hours.
But they were detailed, and I think they learned in the process, and it was good.
They're still kind of new to figuring out
recording
how
it all.
The project worked, and which is fine. It's good. We want to know that, but you can't just turn around and charge a client for all that time, all that learning time that they were recording. And so Joe saw the final number. He's like, no, there's no way we're charging that much for this little project. And so we backed it off a little bit, just kind of chalked a little bit up to learning. But at least we know that we can track that in the future, and hopefully, as time goes by, we get faster, we get better, and more profitable.
I think part of the challenge is really thinking through, for me, what would I pay for something, or what is something worth in the market, even if I wouldn't pay it. But what's it worth in the market? And I think that's really a lot of times like where to come down to that. We talked about two kinds of billing for us. There's really kind of 3 kinds of billing that we do. We do fee-based. That's something we do for a lot of clients. Is we say this is the project that we're going to work on, we're going to do, and we're going to create a fee. It's not going to exceed this fee. It's not going to go under, it's not going to go over, it's going to be this fee. And then if something gets out of bounds with that, like suddenly they've asked us to add another component, then we go back and visit that and say, okay, we're gonna have to add on something. Let's talk about that, kind of a line item sort of thing. But that's typically, it's got to be big enough that it's going to hurt us.
It's worth mentioning.
Right. Like adding a video component or whatever.
It's not that we're bringing a few more candles to the
exactly
to the event.
Exactly. So that fee based, and I think
although we've charged for candles before,
we have
but it's
charged,
usually in the 300 candle range.
That's
not the 3 candle range.
Exactly. So, but I think understanding that fee based for us, that's kind of a gamble. That's an estimate of what we think is kind of reasonable hours we should be putting in, what our time's going to take, what our resources, how much are we going to use, are we have to drive, fly, get there. We are unusual in that we do not charge, typically, we do not charge travel to go somewhere. We work that into our fee, and that's for multiple reasons. One is I never want a client to question how I'm doing something. If I'm flying to Dallas, then flying to Chicago, and then flying to New York, I don't want a client to say, why do I have to pay for your upcharge travel from Dallas to Chicago or anything like that. Mm-hmm. I don't want a client to say, why are you staying in a nice room at the Hyatt, or why are you flying first class or anything like that. I never want those client questions to come in.
That makes it your decision.
It's
you
my
can decide
decision.
If you want to stay at the Ramada Inn.
That's exactly right.
$60 a night.
Or with my friend or my cousin.
Yeah. Or if you want to stay at the Hyatt for $150.
Exactly.
That's your call.
So that's a whole nother subject, but we include that travel into our fee. We would include any staff time that we might be included in that fee. Any extra expenses that we know, something to cost to deliver something or print something on our side. Mm-hmm. All those go into our fee. And then there's things that are for that project, like printing may be something that we would actually have a different line item for, so that fee based. Another way that we charge sometimes is actually the cost of goods plus a markup. Mm-hmm. So we call that the retail formula. So basically we're getting something wholesale. It's either through a relationship with a vendor that we can get something at a discounted price, or we're getting it through, we're buying it from a manufacturing company or again, wholesale company. We have a lot of relationships with wholesalers.
Or we're putting pieces and parts together to make a more valuable product.
Exactly. And so that's when we will upcharge that. And we try to do that more like a fair market value. So a lot of times you can find fair market value for something. Like if you're doing a package of napkins, you know that, hey, we just paid $2 for those, but I can find them at Amazon for $5. And so, $4.50.
Or Harry and David's gift basket is $250. Well, if we buy all the pieces and parts and put them all together in a basket for a client, maybe that's
we actually had a thing come up recently where we were trying to figure out delivery charges on something, and all the delivery fields that we kept coming up with felt high to me.
Yeah.
Until we did the research and went, oh yeah, to overnight that to somebody or hand deliver it with a delivery service, we're definitely in the right field. Mm-hmm. So definitely the fee-based and the retail version, the markup. And then the third way is that hourly fee. And I think for a lot of creatives, that's the sweet spot. That's kind of where we settle into, because we don't know how long it's going to take. We don't know how many hours we're going to invest in something, and we don't know what that's all going to look like. For our company, that is a constant struggle. And we try to be pretty upfront with clients to begin with of this needs to be fee-based. We're going to kind of gamble together sort of thing. Or we're going to also upcharge that. A lot of times we are very clear with that of hey, we're happy to take care of all those things, that there will be a fee, processing fee or handling fee or whatever is part of that thing. We're writing the checks, we're making it happen, we're signing the contracts. And then hourly, we try to be upfront with, hey, this is what the hourly cost is going to be. Here's an estimate maybe of how many hours we think it's going to take. Mm-hmm. This is kind of what you're looking at. And for our office, we have different price structures for different people. So Todd and I are one price structure. We're expensive, and sometimes I go, no, it doesn't cost that much to hang out with me, but it does. We know that, and we know kind of where that looks. We also have other people on our staff. We have graphic artists who we have kind of that fair market value that we've created for them, which is where we've taken their experience, where we've taken what the other people in our market is charging, and kind of tried to be there in the middle somewhere. We don't want to be the most expensive. We don't want to be the cheapest, but kind of there in the middle. And we've come up with kind of a rate card that we do not publish it, but we're not afraid to share it. And that rate card then tells us kind of what every person in the office, kind of how we come up with their price, their per hourly charge. And so this is the tricky part. Typically, that's about double of what they are making as a salary. And I think that's a hard place to understand. It seems like if you're charging $150 an hour for something, it seems like you should be making $150 an hour.
Take home
or a lot.
$150.
Yeah, like, hey, this is what I do. But I think the thing we forget about a lot is the expenses that go into that overhead. And that's what needs to be figured out into that. So for us, having a genius accounting person who thinks that way, it's easy to add up all our expenses. For us, we know exactly what we need to bring in every day. We have exact numbers to break even where we need to be every single day of the year, Monday through Friday, sometimes what we need to do on Saturdays, Sundays. We have that broken down, and then we have all our costs of payroll, where that fits in, how that works together, how people support each other. That's all science, all data that we figured out together, and then come up with that hourly rate that includes that overhead as well as that base pay in there. And that obviously allows for profit, that allows for everything we need to do to operate a company successfully. So again, it's not hard.
It also builds in some savings.
It does.
That you've got to have to be a reliable company. You've got to have a cushion there for when a worker messes up, and you've got to cover an expense or something, or you have a damage to your property or whatever. That's an expense you got to figure into that whole model. That a lot of people don't think about. Some people say you should have 3 to 6 months of expenses in the bank to cover your business, to keep it going in the case of a pandemic. It's a prime example. Some people didn't get that PPP loan for 3 to 6 months, and if they didn't have that savings account, they were out of business.
And I will say that once we were able to be that position where we had that savings, for me, that changed everything about how I think of business. And it changed everything on decision making, because suddenly you're hiring people and you're not thinking, oh, this job's gone away, I have to get rid of them now. Like you know, hey, I've got some cushion here to figure out. It's kind of like an insurance policy of, we've got some time here to figure out if we're going to get another project, right, if they're going to keep working or whatever the situation is. That's been huge for us. I want to go back for a second. We talked about the idea of really how to do those billable hours in fair market value. We talked about the person who spent much more time than fair market value. Mm-hmm. What do you think is some of the biggest challenges with that billable hours? Why is that a negative thing sometimes?
What do you mean?
Well, I know one of the conversations we've had is even how to, do you round up? Do you round down? Do we do 30 minutes, 15 minutes, 45 minutes, hour? But then also, how does that look to the client sometimes when they receive that and kind of think through that? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, that's, in architecture, that was probably our least favorite way of tracking costs for a client was by doing hourly, because it's so easy to question. A client can get a bill for, say, 40 hours in a month on a project, and they can say, wait a minute, that shouldn't have taken 40 hours. Well, they don't know how long it really should have taken for that project. So it can often set you up for being questioned by the client as to whether that was really justified for you to spend that much time on that project. And it can also, if you get to a point in a project, say you're working on a long-term project, and you get to a point where you've spent up to 80% of what they think the project should cost, but you're only 50% of the way through the project, what then? So do you only spend another 20% of their budget?
Finish it real fast
and then you just send out a bad project? Or what do you do? So to avoid problems, if you can, it's really the best option to do a fee-based project. That's really the best. But there's often cases where a client will say, I just need this done. I don't know what it's going to take. It could turn into a major project. just bill me hourly, and I don't care what it costs, or it's within reason. Just get it done. That's more important to me than knowing upfront how much it's going to cost. And in that case, you just do hourly, and you can do that on different projects. You could do that on pieces of projects. For example, we can say we will deliver all of these gift baskets to all of your clients, but we'll just charge you whatever time it takes us to deliver all these, even if one goes all the way to Antlers, and one goes to Oklahoma City, and one goes to Kansas City. Whatever that takes, we'll do it, and we'll just let you know what the delivery charge is for that once we're done.
I think the game changer for us in how we bill has been the collection of the data, and that's been something we've worked on. It was a process, but we've really worked hard to get to the point where we have project numbers for every project we work on, and the project number is translated into hours worked. Obviously, our timesheets, we time track everything.
We use a program called T-Sheets.
Yeah, we use
T-Sheets.
QuickBooks. This was great. Even us, we try to write down. We have even one of my favorite codes is owner conversation, and that can be us going to lunch together or whatever. But we code that down so we know, hey, we've spent this much. We spent 45 hours this month on just owner conversation, and do we need to trim that back or whatever? And then that goes also to purchases. So things we buy
any expenses
are also
we have.
directly go to that
Everyone gets a code.
project code, and so you can easily see what's our bulk expenses, operating expenses, and then what's our particular project expenses. And I know for me in the past, that's been the thing that's always tripped me up, is I don't feel like buying $10-15 at a time is spending that much money. But when you realize I just spent $850, $10 at a time, that becomes huge. And when you're able to project code it and add it up, it doesn't mean we always charge that. It means that we have that data to figure out things from. And I think that's the important part.
We have a baseline we can talk about.
Yeah, and then we're even use that project code in our Dropbox, in our file saving, all that thing, so we can go back and figure out. Our goal is that if someone's asked us, which I don't think they ever have, but if someone comes back and says, wait a minute, what did you do in January? We can go back and say, this is the date, based on our calendars, based on our timesheets, based on all the information. This is what we did. This is what it looked like. This is what we accomplished. So,
right. Another thing we wanted to talk about was how do you establish that hourly rate? And we we talked about that a little bit last time we talked about this, but you got to think about what your time is worth. Are you, like you said, you've got 65 ideas every 30 seconds. Some people it takes a lot longer to think of a good idea, and so do we charge the same amount of money for?
Again, I think it goes back to that fair market value. It goes back to what you need. What I've I tell a lot of people who are just starting out in a creative world, and they're just starting a company and they're leaving their old job and they're trying to figure out what to charge. And I think a lot of times, I've been doing this a long time. You've been doing this a long time, where we are now paying for education that we got in the early years after 25, 30 years of doing this sort of stuff. And, I look at somebody who comes right out of college and they think, oh, well, we can charge the same thing you guys are charging for their services. And you're like, well, first of all, you don't have the overhead that we have. You don't have the experience, the background. So one of the things I like to say for someone who's just starting is, say you've been working at a bank, and let's say at that bank you've been making $40,000, $50,000 a year, and that drills down to $15 an hour or whatever that is, $22 an hour. So let's say you drill that down, you're making $22 an hour. If you want to go into business for yourself, and so let's say, hey, I want to increase that a little bit, so I want to make $60,000 a year, and so that we know that's going to be $25 an hour. I don't know numbers, $25 an hour, and so easily you can say, hey, I'll charge $50 an hour for what I do, or $75 an hour for what I do, because it's going to take this much extra of my overhead. Mm-hmm. So the danger, though, again, I don't think I can reiterate this enough, is that when you have a team working with you, or even yourself, when you start thinking, hey, I charge $100 an hour, $125 an hour, $150 an hour, you can easily start thinking, that's what I'm making. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm taking home. No. That's what you're making for the company. That's what you're bringing to the company. That's what your work every day is worth. But remember, There are times you're not bringing that in as billable hours. There's times that you're also paying for the air conditioner to be repaired, and you're paying for vehicles and everything else. So that's kind of my caution is when you start thinking through that. We have a friend who said recently, I make $150 an hour. It's like, do you really? Because that's a lot for what you're doing, and that's a lot in your market. So I think it's important. Hey, we're getting close to time here, but I want to do this again. Really, I think it's valuable. There's a lot to talk about here.
There's
a lot of good stuff. And again, you've been a lifesaver to me, and I just want to honor you for that, because I think you've really helped me think through a lot of this. I think as creatives, it's something that's a hard topic.
Yeah, your mind doesn't always. Creative minds don't always think in that way, and so
we encourage you to look at the data and really record the data and keep track of the data and know what that data looks like. Time tracking is crucial. Even if you're all fee-based, time tracking is crucial. And knowing how you spent time, how many hours you put into projects, and knowing what you're really worth. And then also making sure you're coding and categorizing the supplies you purchase for something. And that's all fair and works into that. Either it works in the fee, or it's working into something you're charging. You're recovering it somehow. That's exactly right. So this is fun. I love this. This is a good topic.
Good stuff.
We would love for you to follow us on Instagram and Facebook and all the social medias. I think the Joe and Todd Show is out there. You can follow Joe and Todd Show. You can follow Rumble Drum. Obviously, you can watch us on YouTube, which is really weird because you would see right now that we're both wearing black shirts. Which was a debate a while ago if one of us should change. But anyway, love for you to follow us. We'd love for you to like things that are said, that we say. Means I had a lady come up to me the other night who watches or listens to our podcast, and she recognized my voice at an event. It was really kind of cool. It was one of those fun things. So really, if you email us, my email is joe@rumbledrum.com. Todd is todd@rumbledrum.com. Yep. We're really hard emails around here. rumbledrum.com is our website. We'd love for you to like us, follow us, and give us feedback. Let us know if we need to have a phone conversation. We'd love to do that. Whatever we can do to make you better as a creative, we want to do. So.
Yep. Reach out. We'll talk to you next time.
Have a great day.
Bye.